The air was thick with humiliation. "Don't you ever talk back to me, Gerald," the white man hissed, his voice low and threatening. "You are nothing here, nothing. Clean this room now, or don't bother showing up tomorrow." "Sir, the floors are spotless. I've scrubbed them again and again," Jasmine, the black cleaner, responded. But Gerald, without saying a word, grabbed a full cup of water and poured every drop over Jasmine. The icy water soaked her hair, streamed down her face, and drenched her uniform, pooling at her feet on the freshly mopped floor. The shock of the cold made her gasp, but it wasn't just the temperature. It was the cruelty behind the act that left her breathless. "Now you've got something real to clean up," Gerald sneered. What he didn't realize, though, was that he hadn't just humiliated a cleaner. He had just crossed the very woman who held the power to destroy his entire career. Before we dive deeper into the story, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. If you believe no one should be treated unfairly, no matter who they are, type in the comments where you're watching from. You'll get a reply. The executive floor of Williams Innovations gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights as Jasmine Williams, disguised in a maintenance uniform, carefully guided her mop across the polished surface. The name tag on her chest did not say Jasmine Williams. It read Janet. The very hands that had signed million-dollar contracts now gripped a mop handle, raw and red from industrial cleaning supplies. As she worked, the sound of expensive leather shoes clicking against the floor grew louder behind her. Gerald Hayes, the operations manager, a man who had never looked her in the eye during executive meetings, now loomed over her, a stack of reports clutched in his manicured hands. Jasmine's eyes, usually commanding in the boardroom, flashed with a restrained fury. Clenching her jaw, she silently nodded and bent down to retrieve the now-soaked papers. Every part of her wanted to stand up, reveal exactly who she was, and fire this man on the spot. But that wasn't the plan. That wasn't why she was here. Jasmine Williams, the brilliant 28-year-old Harvard Business School graduate. The woman known for her designer suits, sharp intellect, and being named in Forbes 30 Under 30 for her groundbreaking work in sustainable technology. Williams Innovations wasn't just any company. It was built from the ground up by Robert Williams, Jasmine's father, 35 years ago. Starting in his garage with nothing but a dream and a $2,000 loan from his grandmother, Robert turned his idea into a $5 billion fintech empire. A pioneer, one of the few black CEOs in Silicon Valley, Robert Williams had built his company on two principles: innovation and integrity. His silver-streaked hair and deep laugh lines told the story of a man who had fought for his success. But recently, something had changed. The once vibrant leader now looked drained. The heart attack 6 months ago had been a wake-up call for the entire Williams family. Doctors had been clear. Robert had to cut down his stress immediately. The 80-hour work weeks that had been his norm for 3 decades? No longer an option. Suddenly, succession planning, a conversation that had always been about the future, became urgent. Jasmine, his only child and the executive he had groomed for leadership, was the obvious choice to take over. But Robert had doubts that kept him up at night, doubts he finally voiced during a quiet family dinner at their home, overlooking the city lights. "Jasmine, you know I couldn't be prouder of everything you've accomplished," Robert began, his deep voice carrying the warmth and authority that had inspired thousands of employees over the years. "Your business acumen is extraordinary. Your technical knowledge is impressive. But I'm worried about what you don't know." Jasmine set down her fork, one perfectly arched brow raising in question. "What don't I know, Dad?" Robert sighed, the weight of his legacy heavy on his shoulders. "You don't know what it's like in the trenches. You've never seen how this company runs from the ground up. You have no idea how management treats the people who actually keep this company running, the ones without fancy titles or corner offices." Jasmine opened her mouth to protest, but Robert raised his hand. "When I started this company, I was everything: the janitor, the accountant, the salesman, and the engineer. I knew every part of this business because I did every job. That perspective is invaluable. The reports on your desk don't tell you about the real culture of this company, the one that exists beyond the executive floor." His eyes, so much like hers, held a deep concern. I've been hearing things, Jasmine whispers, about how much the company culture has changed. But let's be honest, everyone puts on a show for the boss's family. You can't lead what you don't truly understand. The challenge hung heavy between them. Jasmine, never one to back down from a challenge, leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Dad? The plan they came up with that night? Bold, audacious, risky. For 2 weeks, Jasmine would go undercover as a night shift cleaner. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no privileges. She would see Williams Innovations through the eyes of its lowest-ranking employees. The transformation was dramatic. Gone were the designer suits, replaced by worn, simple clothes. Her sleek, straightened hair, now back to its natural curls, tucked under a simple headscarf. Flawless manicured nails?
Gone.
Her signature makeup?
Gone.
The diamond studs she never took off, replaced with plain metal hoops. The polished executive disappeared. In her place stood Janet, the quiet, invisible cleaning woman. Robert made sure nobody in HR would recognize her. Through a third-party cleaning service, Proc Clean, she was placed on the night crew, her background fully fabricated to avoid suspicion. As far as anyone knew, Janet was just another worker, just another nobody. Jasmine had 2 weeks to uncover the truth. 2 weeks to see if her father's company still lived by the values he had built it on. What she didn't know. Those 2 weeks would change everything she thought she knew about Williams Innovations, about leadership, and about herself. By the second day of her undercover mission, she had already begun to adjust to the physical toll of the work. The sharp pain in her muscles had dulled into a steady ache. Her soft hands had grown calloused. But nothing, not business school, not her years in leadership, had prepared her for Gerald Hayes. Gerald prided himself on running a tight ship at Williams Innovations. His crisp shirts, flawless hair, and ever-present leather portfolio projected control. To executives, he was efficient and results-driven. To cleaning staff, he was a tyrant. And for some reason, Gerald had set his sights on breaking Janet. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. The inspection began immediately, with Gerald wasting no time in tearing apart her progress, her technique, her choice of cleaning solutions, even the way she arranged her cart. "Are you trying to be this incompetent, or does it just come naturally to you?" He sneered, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "This is exactly why we should replace all cleaning staff with robots. At least they can follow instructions properly on the first try." Jasmine bit her tongue, swallowing the insult. As executive VP, she could have ended Gerald's career with a single email. But as Janet the cleaner, she had no choice but to apologize and promise to do better. The other cleaners had already noticed Gerald's unusual fixation on the new girl, and they tried to warn her. Darnell, a veteran cleaner who had been with the company for years, pulled Jasmine aside after one particularly brutal encounter, her hands still trembling as she restocked her cart. "You need to stay out of his way," Darnell muttered, glancing over his shoulder to make sure no one overheard. Then came Thursday night, the night everything changed. Jasmine was cleaning the hallway just outside the main conference room on the executive floor. Her car was neatly positioned against the wall, leaving plenty of space for anyone passing through. It was 11:30 p.m. The building was almost deserted, most offices dark, their occupants long gone. She had just finished refilling her bucket with fresh cleaning solution when she heard it, the unmistakable sound of Gerald's leather dress shoes tapping against the marble floor. As he neared, he paused right next to her cleaning cart, his gaze sweeping over her work with an exaggerated sense of scrutiny. And then it happened. This was no accident. As Gerald resumed walking, he deliberately swung his arm out, hitting the edge of her perfectly organized cart, sending it crashing to the floor with a loud thud. Jasmine barely had time to process what had happened before he stepped forward, walking directly through the spilled cleaning solution, leaving a trail of dirty footprints across the floor she had spent the last hour making spotless. He never looked back, never acknowledged what he had done, never offered to help. But that smirk, that slight, satisfied smirk as he walked away, it said everything.